You see the point? Because right now he's talking about the village head alone, no, the youth president alone. And we need to have, the youth president itself must have a structure in the village that will give him information. Some of the youth presidents are not living in their community. That is not even an issue. You see the point? There has to be a structure in that village that information has to be, and who is he working with. So sometimes on these village youth presidents, you know, because of politicization of that structure, which I will come into it later, you know, some youth presidents have connections to things and places that they are not supposed to have. You see the point? So they need to do some good profiling to get to know exactly who this person are. On a bigger problem is having a structure that works. In as much as we say the youth president is still under this thing, under the village head, it is very true. In certain situations, we need to understand that the youth has its own structure that is answerable to the Ministry of Youth itself. I have been involved. In fact, in my village, we had the situations that we had to take the matter to the Ministry of Youth. I used to interact with the retired Director of Youth in the then Ministry of Youth and Sport, you know. So we used to have that kind of serious interaction over that matter. So we need to have clearly outlined boundaries so that we know where can the youth president be independent, where does the village head has overriding power, or the village council, you know. And then the governor has got to do some other thing. You need to go down to the grassroots to structure the village system properly. There are villages without village council. There are villages without village family heads, you know, because normally we hear certificates are given to family heads. There are certain villages where the village head will stop the family heads from getting their certificate. There are villages where the village head will stop the youth presidency from acting and doing his duties. So there has to be a clearly defined structure at that local level, from the village headship to the what do you call it, the village council, which is supposed to have the chairman, you know, and this council secretary, financial secretary, and all those kind of things. Because you see, in some villages, my brother, I've seen somebody who died, a very close friend, a church deacon, because there was money in the village account, and I understand he wanted to be village head, and they told him your family is not meant to be village head. He died. You see the point? After the whole money in the village account had been used up in trying to cure him of his ailment that started the moment he accepted to be village head. You get the point I'm trying to say? So when money is there like that, we need to have a responsible system at the village level. We need to depoliticize, because one of the biggest problems you have in communities is the politicization of both from the village of the village council, from the village head to the village chairman, and to the youth presidency. We need to have those structures. The governor has got to spell out exactly what should every village have. You know what I'm saying? Because every village, as far as I see, must have a village head, a village, the family heads, you understand me, in that community, the village council, the youth, and even the women. Every village, before you can see these things work properly, the villages itself must be properly structured to be responsive to this thing, or else you are going to see situations where there are clashes. Because the village, there could be a situation. I was in my local government of Ibiono. There was a time where I used to go in those days to what do they call this thing? Council meeting at this thing. I've forgotten. Traditional council meeting every month. Once in a month they have it. You see the point? And from there I discovered how the much problem you see. And I saw a village head. There was a plantation of cashew that the community had planted so that they can use it to help the community sell it, the proceeds of those things. And the village head now took those things and personally, you know, listed out to a company, and the money was coming to him. I'm from a community where land are being sold, nobody knows what is happening. These are the things that is going to cause crisis in community. How will the government come in to create a structure in such a way that from the any crisis that comes out there, it is very easy for me and you, anybody or the community, to seek redress? You see the point? If not so, at the end of the day, we are still going to have problems with all these things happening. You see the point I'm trying to say? So it is not just because, yes, it is primarily to create security in community information, but there are other issues that can come in if we don't properly organize our villages in such a way that many issues, because somebody, a village, something will happen, the person cannot report, maybe the village head is bad, and he takes the matter to the youth president and say, come and handle this thing, you're working with government, let us take this matter up to so level. And there could be a clash between the village head and the youth president or something. There has to be a clearly defined structure where the communities can exist with each other. You understand me? You know, because I have seen situations, even for you to see, one of the big problems you see in community today, it is very difficult for me now in communities to seek redress. You see the point? I've seen people take matter to the paramount ruler, and the paramount ruler cannot really solve it because he doesn't have any power. You see, and they will tell you, for you to take this matter, I don't know of now, to the traditional rulers can be envisaging, because if we can do it that way, I think we are going to have a lot more peace in the state than what we have today.
All right, this is the melting point on Memories 96.5 FM. Otueko is in the house. Otueko, now, recently the state government has threatened the Etidungs, to withdraw their certificate of recognition if they fail to provide adequate security in their places, or their government properties or infrastructures are, vandalized. Now, with the inauguration of the village youth presidents into the security apparatus of the government, are you seeing the village head now being in a fix, or being the position of the Etidungs being threatened because suddenly the president or the youth presidents are coming to say, I'm a government official, whatever I them, something will happen? Are you seeing it as a threat to the village council?
Well, it all depends on the village, and that is why the vetting of the persons who are going to head those things must be done properly. If it is done properly, you notice that we have half solved the problem. And like I said, you heard the village, the governor talked about the village heads. There are a lot of, like I said, the primary problem you see in communities are the village heads. I'm telling you the truth. Some village heads are doing terrible things, boundaries of land, selling people's land. You see the point? You have village heads who have cases that the government have said, you see a family house in a compound, a village head would go and sell because the owners of that land, the family house, pocketing millions. There are village heads that you see, they stand in this maybe river, and that the ones control the village account and all those things. So these things are part of the things that will create insecurity in communities. There are villages whose children, remember there was one time in Oron, one of the villages in Oron, where it was discovered that the children of the villages were behind kidnapping. I think during the first term of Chief Godswill Akpabio as governor of the state. It happened like that. So we have these situations that the governor, you may think, I don't want the governor to take a fan and fan himself and say, hey, I've set up this structure that has finished. He has not even started. Because primarily one of the biggest challenges we have in Akwa Ibom, possibly across Nigeria, is the lack of proper organization at the village level. You understand me? I have seen it because I've been involved in it. At the time, I got tired. When you see problem in the village, that's why sometimes I tell you it's a village problem. You think it will never end. You see, it keeps on rolling. You take the matter. Look, we have gone to a level where we went to the traditional, to the paramount ruler. I used to visit my paramount ruler every single week to sort out problems in my community. You see the point? So this is what the governor has got to do. He has got to make sure that he's shining eye where at the community. Don't just overlook it. Don't politicize it, because one of my fear is that this is politics. Yeah. That is one of my fears. So that's my personal this is politics. By the time election ends next year, this matter will disappear. We are not going to see, because when you look at what is going on now, when you see flurry of activities like this close to election, I look one eye at it until after election. Let me see if they are going to continue it. If the governor has come up with a good idea, but let us pray that this is not politicization. We'll be planning for next year's election. People are going to organize election in their villages and communities for you. Okay. Let us pray that is not the situation.
All right, many security experts, I mean, there's this common agreement that intelligence gathering is most effective at the grassroots level,
Yes.
where people know their communities better than maybe visitors or even those who share boundaries with them. Can community intelligence significantly improve security outcomes? And what examples can you actually cite from elsewhere that suggest that this model is going to succeed, is bound to succeed?
Yes, it is the community. You know that you come to many communities like if you know where I'm from, and you see the communities who set up gates in the villages. They know where to side the gates. In my village, we were supposed to do that, but you know, like I said, there was a clash between the youth and the villager, and that thing was not done. You see, but you know, the neighboring village to me, there is a gate at strategic entrances to the community, especially here where anybody can pass it. You see the point? And it has really helped to make the community secure. In my community then, I don't know whether they will start it all over again. We used to have youths at night, because at the time we fought a cross-border war, who will, I mean, the thing will be regulated, you know, you just have some people who will be up there at the night to make sure that the community is safe. Some youth will do the night guide, walk around with torchlight and all that in strategic places, and the community is certainly safe. At the time in Southern Ibiono, we had one young man, I've forgotten his name, who was a Scotch to the people from what do you call, from this place, from Ikoramba, right down to Nomoduita. We used to have them. That guy was a Scotch. I've forgotten what they called the man. He was finally caught. It was during Udom Emmanuel's government. He was finally caught in Cross River State. He killed, in fact, there were two people in my church who died.
Malachi.
Malachi, yes. There were two people in my church. One was a young lady who was in the choir, a married woman, that when he went into the house and shot the husband in the leg and shot the woman in the tummy. And there was one other pastor at Itak Junction and here. But incidentally, upon all this crisis going around, the guy never penetrated my village. You understand me? Because in my village we had a reasonably good security structure that would not allow him to operate. You see, so, but in all the places across, right to Nomoduita, I have a young lady who was a security in my church, and after a time, after the guy died, the lady told me that she's going back. She used to run a restaurant, and that she closed down that restaurant because of that thing. She had to seek something else, so she to do, you know, to keep body and soul together. So she went back. So those things were working. Villages that had its own security properly organized did not suffer from the scourges of these guys. And one of the reasons why he was able to operate on those major roads was simply because we didn't have proper security within the villages. But in my village, it was properly secure. My village has a reputation of fighting a cross-border war. So somehow some people are still afraid that if you come into that village, you know, even a criminal is afraid of death, you know. So these are some examples I can tell you. My village, you know, we had that kind of arrangement. You see the point? So if going forward you have those kind of things, you discover that it is going to create a lot more balance. And again, you see all these men with cows who are going around causing crisis everywhere. And I remember in my village, if this kind of structure was there, my village would not have suffered what they suffered. Because I understand that some youth in the village kept on telling these people, don't bring your cows into our farmland. Don't bring your cows into the farmland. So incidentally, on one day, in the course of pursuing the cow out of the place, and whether the cow fell down and one of the cows died or something like that, they came in there with a security operatives army, and my people ended up, the youth families, and one of my uncles was arrested. The son was not even involved. They just saw him in the sitting down there and they arrested him. At the end of the day, my village paid, I think, about 5 million. They collected those money from families. So this thing is going to stop most of those things. We have an anti-grazing law on ground, and yet it is not being enforced. I believe that when you incorporate these people, remember when Umoino was coming to office, Governor Umoino, was coming to office during the stakeholders consultation around the state. The former PDP chairman, Uwemi took of from Ibesikbo, was the former chairman of Ibesikbo Sultan local government. He said he doesn't mind who comes in. But that is problem. Is these people who are going to farmlands, and destroying farmlands. And in fact, I saw one of my friends posted a video and said, people, please be careful when you are going to farm. A lady narrated what happened on a video and posted it. How she went to farm and her people had gone and she was trying to do some finishing touches. And this man came and tried to rape her. It was a serious fight until some people overheard her shouting. And they came to rescue her from that man. You see the point? One of these cow headers. So these are the situations that will help us to enforce these laws and make sure that communities are safe. You see the point? Because you go to a community and you see, like somebody told me in Ikodabasi, they went to a community, was in a Neket rather, and they saw these people, a farmland, that the place that the people keep for one thing or the other, to follow. You see, they heard that these people were living, and then they came there and saw them and said, how did you come? The people said, we are not looking for trouble. He said, this is not the issue of looking for trouble. You came into a community. Have you visited the village yet to say this is going to have a security supervisor and like that across? It is far beyond that. The village system needs to be properly organized to be able to be responsive to the challenges of our communities.
Yeah, thank you for the encomiums on His Excellency the Governor. Now, prior to the engagement of these youth presidents, there's been a tenure of office, for the youth presidents, at least 2 years, 3 years. Mm-hmm. Now that they are now in government, how is it going to conflict with the local arrangements?
No, the tenure, electing of youth president, yes, is depending on the community. Like in my own is 4 years. In my own, it ended up in court, with the court had to tell the village to leave the youth arrangement alone. Even when the paramount ruler told him the same thing, leave the youth alone. That in his own village, my paramount ruler said this is the same thing that happened, and then he had to. From the Ministry of Youth and Sport, because you have a youth officer in every local government. The man came and told Oga, this is the law. Allow the youth to do their own thing, and the man hands off. You see the point I'm trying to say? So that thing, depending on what the constitution of that thing, and this is one of the things the governor has got to work on, make sure that every youth, they have certificate for that organization. There is a registration at the the Ministry of Youth. You have to register and get your certificate. That village has got to have their own youth certificate. They have to have everything that must be seeable. They have to have a constitution. Depending on that constitution, if they say 2 years, and you leave, or 2 years you leave, or 4 years you leave, and another person is elected, so that we don't have internal crisis that will scuttle the plans of the governor. That is why I said the governor has got a lot of work to do. The Ministry of Youth has got lots of work to do. They have to sit down village by village, work with the youth officer in every local government, and make sure that the village has got a legal structure, to have the normal have a youth the youth president is executive. The executive is not just the youth president. You have the youth president, have the assistant, the vice chairman of the youth, or vice president of the youth of the village. You have to have the secretary, you have to have the financial secretary, you have to have treasurer, or depending whether you want to have financial secretary or treasurer, you have to have the publicity secretary and all the offices you want, and they have to have an account. You have to know the account, because youth contribute, so that this thing will not create crisis in that community on its own. You have to have an account in a bank, and the signatories, before every youth president is allowed to operate. How are they going to operate within the village? Because it's not going to work alone. That is why I know they said training is going to go on. But that training should not just be on intelligence, and should not just be the youth president. In every village, the governor must make sure that there is a structure for youth in the village. Like I said, the executive of the youth. And that when this training is going to go on, each village should come with at least 3 people. At least the president, the vice president, and the secretary of that village council. When you have that structure, You understand? When you have that structure put on ground, you're going to see that things are going to work out on its own. But if the governor just said we are going to train the youth and this, that, at the end of the day, I'm sorry to say this, that those things may not give us the kind of response that we are looking for, the kind of benefits that we want to see. But if these things is properly structured, my brother, I tell you, you see this food the governor is talking about, we want to make sure we increase food in Akwa Ibom here. Mark me, you're going to see a lot of the village economy on the upward swing.
Well, still related to what you have explained in the last 3 minutes, whenever citizens are given security responsibilities, there are concerns about possible misuse of influence, or even political interference. What safeguards do you think government should put in place to prevent this particular initiative, which you have already commended the governor for, from being exploited for personal, political, or even ethnic interest?
Yeah, you see, the exploitation is always the reason for that mostly is simply because of the politicization, which I said. Representing and Tina, the former PDP chairman, was there. I saw politicians of different shades and colors who were there, and these things can maybe used, primarily for political purposes, and that simply means that by the time the next person comes into office, he may likely scatter it, because most of the scattering you see of projects or programs of government is simply because it doesn't work in line with the political interest of the next man that comes into office. But if the governor, because that is primarily where the problem is, and that is the weak link we have. Election, that's why I said election is around the corner. But is this thing a structure for the next governorship and presidential and all other elective offices that is going to be in line by January or February next year? Is that what we are seeing? If it is what we are seeing, I am sorry, it is not going to work. Now, why do these people behave the way they do? Because if you are an anchor for a politician, simply you are bound to take things for granted and act with impunity within the community, knowing fully well that if I take up the action and say, look, let me report these people, this man in my community who is doing wrong to the powers that be, they will not act, because the man in office is even afraid that if he takes severe action, these boys are going to take actions against me. Could be next election, they will say, this is what you did to me the other time, this is where we are going to go. You understand me? So the governor has to first and foremost depoliticize that office, because certainly you're going to see somebody who is politically connected in the next election because of the largesse that is starting to come into that office. You are going to see in the next election maybe the youth, somebody who is politically connected, his political father will say he's going to be the one to become the next youth president of XYZ village, and that will create problem for us. You see the point? This thing will make this thing not to work the way it is supposed to work. So we pray the governor will take time and put a structure on ground. Put a structure on ground that will be difficult for somebody to just come in and scatter come next election. You see the point? That's why I said the structure in every community must be properly put together. It's not just going to be this or that, you just do whatever you want. The structure must be properly put together to make sure that, we make sure that the youth organization, the youth is not just executive, the youth in the village, they are properly organized to make sure that the village benefit from it. If the village benefit from that, what you're going to see is that it's going to be a little bit difficult for an outsider or a politically interested party to come in and disrupt that organization the way it is organized, the way it's put together.
All right, Otuekong, now
the Okuku of Ibiono, and you have the paramount ruler. And now the Okuku is the paramount ruler is in charge of the customs and tradition, while the Okuku is more in charge of the spiritual aspect like libation and all that. Is like an enforcer of whatever. So whenever, take for example, the Okuku makes a law, for example, now the paramount ruler can say in a social village, If they would have to go and put injunction over a land matter or something that happened in the community, the paramount ruler will not come. It is the Okoko who will now go to that village to put the injunction for this thing, to make sure that everybody obeys the law that is coming from the traditional something. So there are bylaws already that guide their action. And what the youth itself, it has its own bylaws. You see the point? So this one is an extra added responsibility, and this responsibility will need for us to add certain things to those laws, both the one on the traditional level and this other one, the youth level. Because when you go to youth and Minister of Youth, you see the laws are there. You go to Minister of Local Government and Chieftaincy Affairs, the laws are there. You see the point? Different laws. So all we need to do is that to see how we can incorporate this new responsibility. Not just because to secure a community, it's not just the responsibility of the youth alone, the youth president. It is equally the responsibility of the village head and his council. So that's why I said one thing the governor has to do is to make sure that all these things are properly structured according to the laws that are already there, because most villages don't have it. Right now you have villages that don't have village council. The village head is the council. I asked a question somewhere, and one village head told me that, you know, in those days the necessity for the village council was simply that the village head were illiterate, they didn't know. Now village head are educated, they know they can read and write, so they don't need. No, that is not the reason. It's extremely wrong for somebody to come with that argument. Why they make that argument is that the village head wants to be the lord and master, the beginning and the end of that community. You see the point? So what the governor needs to do is that the laws are there already. Make sure that villages are structured according to the already existing laws. If there are new things you need to add to that thing, let the House of Assembly revise some of those laws, add more things to the law to make sure that you can put those things together and create peace. You know, because everything is leadership. When the leadership in communities are wrong, things don't work properly in that community. You see, crisis. Instead of the man securing thieves that are coming in to do something, you see crisis between this. You can have village heads who are selling transformer. The governor would send transformer to community. The village head will sell it. I have seen it happen. They will sell the transformer. Nobody knows exactly. You ask him, anybody that asks him, they will bring this into it. And the government should look at a village head that is always at the police station. There are village head who every week, I mean, I saw a village head at Ikonopan, and one policeman told him, sir, don't you have anything to do in your community? Every day, every week you must be here. When you see a village head like that, it's not a good person. And if it's not good, do something and remove him. We shouldn't look back and play politics with all this thing. Remove them so that there will be peace in that community.
All
so
right.
that is it.
10:42 on the clock. You're listening to The Melting Point on Memories 96.5 FM this Tuesday morning. And it's time for you to be a part of the discussion. We're looking at the latest development in the security sector in Akwa Ibom State. That is the incorporation, the inclusion of youth presidents across the over 2,000 villages in the state into the state security architecture by the state governor, Pastor Moino. Okay, the phone lines to call and sending your WhatsApp messages. The phone lines to call 0803 085 7755, that is for calls, and 0809 066 6909, that is for WhatsApp messages. We're also streaming live on Facebook at Memories 965 FM and on YouTube at Memories TV Online. You can drop a comment on the live stream on YouTube and of course on Facebook as well. While we're expecting your calls and your messages, the governor has also directed a local government chairman to support supervisors or appoint supervisors for security to coordinate this youth leaders. Do you think adding another administrative layer will improve coordination, or could it create, bureaucracy issues and confusion on who exactly is truly in charge?
Right in that position, there has been a vacuum, and I do know that the security people from local government send security report to the governor.
So I have to interrupt you there. Let's take this call. Hello, good morning.
Yes, good morning, Memories.
Welcome to the program.
You're welcome.
Yeah, good morning, Ochuekon.
Good morning, sir.
Okay, please, my name is Ian. I'm calling from Abak.
Go ahead, please.
I am an Anang man from Orowana.
No problem, no problem.
I want to say and also to observe, like, the question that wholesaler, asked, open a proper, judgment to that question, and that has been bothering me all the time I heard this announcement. What exactly will be the modality? An existing youth president, not minding key to a security personnel of the government, he relinquish power to a new person, and then when the new person comes, will he or she be onboarded into the security apparatus of the local of the village?
All right then.
Please, that's why Mana expatiate on that question. Remember.
Thank you, Ian from Abak. Thank you.
And understand, it's a very serious matter. I understand what he said, but though I answered it, but maybe I didn't explain. You see, there are laws there. That's why I said the government must make sure that every village has its own council. The laws there, like their constitution. The constitution will determine the tenure. There are some villages to 2 years, some villages to 4 years. My village is 4 years. And so the moment you finish your tenure as a youth president, you are out. Then you determine whether the person, I think like in my community, you cannot go back second term immediately or something like that. You get the point I'm trying to say. You have to give time, because this responsibility has to circulate for people to learn leadership. You see the point? So that is it. The problem we are going to have is that people, like you said, we talk about politicization of that office. You see the point? If somebody has been fixed in that place and he is connected to the politician at the center, so to speak, or at the local government, or maybe a member of the house or a commissioner, will he relinquish that position? Because he can relinquish, he can say the village can elect a new president, and he will not allow them to have the certificate of recognition, which is from the Minister of Youth. He will not allow them to have access to account. All these things we must make sure that it is internalized in the law, and that whenever this matter comes up, because there are going to be crises, what is the government going to do about it? Are you going to allow politics to come in, or to make sure that you settle that matter, because the security of the community is extremely important? You see the point? So that is the matter. The laws are there. You see, the problem is that, are we going to make these laws actionable, or are we going to, because of politics, somebody will simply say, I have an interest there. At the moment you hear I have an interest, the men who are taking decisions will have to relax, and you start hearing politics, come today, come tomorrow, and the crisis will continue in that village. But the laws are there. The tenure, the constitution, like in my village, everything is there at the ministry. The constitution, before you do something, you have to submit, and I think you renew the license or something like that.
All right, let's get to take this other call. Hello, good morning.
Hello.
Good morning. Welcome to the program.
Thank you for having me in the conversation. This is Bob calling from Union. Good
Bob.
morning, the wholesaler.
Good morning, sir.
Good morning, sir.
I want to say on this motion by our governor, it's a very good one. I think to have, because if like other people, like especially the north, are taken some proactive measures, I think we have to remind you because the issue of insecurity is starting from the grassroots. So we have to go back to the grassroots and know and all those people. So I think it's something that can be applicable to other states, not just avoid the state. And also, let me also add, I think this idea of our government, why did you not pass through the House of Assembly? Like the way to be as a game, not just to come and make it. Why did you not pass through the so like, yes, anything happens tomorrow, they know that it is enough.
All right. Thank you, Bob. Back to my question before they will sell at his own. I mean, adding another administrative layer, bringing confusion about who is truly in charge. Local government chairman, village head, youth president, the community watch, the police.
Yeah, you see, the security man in the local government, I do believe that he'll be connected to the community watch and the minister of security, the same to the governor.
And then a supervisor.
Yes, a supervisor, yes,
well.
Because he's the one to supervise within. You know that layers of administration at that local government level, it's not going to be easy for you to just jump up and say you want to go to the governor. But you know, you can report to your a supervisor within the local government who will hand over the report to the maybe local government chairman who will forward it again. So that structure will make it manageable. That is a better way to do it. You know, so the governor is on point, on track with that. But the challenges we keep on saying is that let us pray that these things, like the man just said, when we have to have a law backing it. The governor, I know this is an emergency because of the insecurity across the country that is affecting states and communities. It's an emergency, but this thing has got to go to the House of Assembly, and we need to have a law to back these things up, because something will happen and the matter goes to court, you know, and we have to have laws that will help help the situation when the matters go to court. So we need a backing. It's going to give energy to that process if we have a law backing this this action that the governor is taking. It's extremely necessary, but that we have to start here. I don't blame the governor. It is the challenges on ground that is making him jump ahead, you know. But then we need to ask, if not the governor doing something, we need to ask the House of Assembly. I will speak to some of these my civil society organization. Look, as you are going to, they are always invited to over one bill or the other. Please tell them, make sure that this thing comes into law to give a legal backing to whatever is supposed to happen.
All right, we have another call here. Hello,
Okay.
good morning.
Hello, Yaki.
Welcome.
Yes, I'm here once again.
All right, thank you for joining us.
First of all, thank you for attempting to give answer to our question. I would want to say here that there should be proper training and orientation.
Yes.
Because in one of our communities here, a young man is a youth president, NYAKNNO, and he ordered that the thief should be beaten. And in order, before you declare, in order, so there should be training and orientation that this will not automatically confer on them. Also,
All right.
please. Thank you.
Thank you, Ian, for that.
That's a good one. All right, now yes, Enquiry. Now let's look at are you foreseeing any lacuna or any any lacuna that will exist between villages that don't have a village head,
Yes.
and of course the youth president?
Yes, there's certainly, these are some of those things that worry us. Okay.
I have to pause you one more time. Hello, good morning. You're our last caller on the program.
Good morning, sir.
You're
Welcome to
welcome.
the program. Walter, go ahead, please.
Yes, that's my friend sitting there. The next person that comes, if there's not people in it, I am in plan. I'm giving people my moment. You president like my own village I'm talking to you now. They don't know why I have next 2 months. If the name I care about, what are they going to do? Does it mean that you president, you don't know the next part, I don't want the next part of 4 years. And you can go get my friends people permanently in the community for about you because in a part for you to override. You will be born in this community.
That's a bit extreme, Walter.
We are telling the truth. No one is going to do. They will tell you more governor. They will not even listen to the village head again.
Okay. Well, thank you.
Thank
you. Thank you. Let's not be pessimistic. Thank you very much. Well, that's the last call we will be taking. Otorekon, let's go.
Go ahead. In the absence of village heads.
Yes, you see, it just goes to see what this man is saying. You're going to have challenges, though. There are some villages after the village head dies, it takes years You understand me? For even a new village to be put in order. But yet those villages are organized properly. You know what the problem with many communities, in fact in our system, is that whenever government comes into a community, there's bound to be fight between one thing or the other, and certainly you're going to see this fight coming, like the last caller just said. But the thing we need to do, the government has to preempt these things by structuring every community properly. If the governor sees that there is no village here, you know, there's no village council, there are no family heads, you know, the government must make sure every village has a village head, has a village council, has a youth president and women leaders, and make sure that there are laws backing all these things up. If not so, we are going to have crisis in this thing going forward. There are villages that are bound to be battled, and make the laws to work. You know, not just to allow people to this is like you're talking about villages without villages. We need to have a time frame. There has to be a law that says if a village head dies, we cannot stay for more than 1 year without having somebody to take over that position, because that vacuum is not proper. Especially now you have this higher responsibility. So we need to properly organize villages. The governor must do that. It will help us a lot.
All right, as we wrap up this morning, one thing is clear: security is too important to be left to government alone. Yet, community involvement must come with responsibility, professionalism, and accountability. Whether this initiative by the governor becomes a model for grassroots security or another well-intentioned experiment will depend on implementation and results. The real test begins now, and the people of Akwa Ibom will definitely be watching closely. A big thank you to our studio analyst, Otuakong Donald Enquiry, for coming on the program this morning.
Yeah, thank you for thanking me.
And of course to you, the listener.